Welcome to the Edition Live. Happy Wednesday. I am your host, Dana Snyder, CEO and founder of Positive Equation. Welcome, welcome. If you're not familiar with Positive Equation and what I do, my mission is to equip nonprofit leaders and marketers just like yourself with the digital marketing tools and knowledge necessary to attract new donors, love on the current ones, and raise more funds. So, to do those things, I love researching new things in the tech industry. And something that I did a lot of research on last year and we're coming back into with kind of the COVID research here is virtual events. So if you are researching tools that really make it fun and simple for your supporters to give online, I found this tool called Pledge. It used to be called Pledgeling. When I lived in Los Angeles, I went to a conference and that's how I heard about them. But they have created a partnership with Zoom, brilliant, where they have created something called the Pledge app. And this app lets you now add a donate button in this beautiful experience right into Zoom. So essentially, any Zoom meeting that you have can now become an instant fundraiser for your nonprofit in literally seconds. And the best part about it is that it's free. So to take a further look at what I'm talking about, I'm going to play a quick video for you on Pledge.
Introducing a donate button in Zoom, powered by Pledge. It's easy to get started within minutes. Click Create a Fundraiser. Pick a nonprofit from our database of over 2 million organizations. Set a goal. Share it in your Zoom. Then see your donations skyrocket. As a special thank you, donors will get an exclusive custom virtual background, making this a Zoom they will never forget. Join the global movement for good and start fundraising through your Zoom today with the Donations by Pledge app, now available in Zoom.
Okay. How cool is that? I donated virtual background feature. I love that. If you are interested in learning more about the Pledge app and how this can work for you in your upcoming events, I went ahead and put a link in the comments section. So you should be able to click that and just find out more information about Pledge's Zoom app. So without further ado, we have an incredible guest joining us today, Sabrina Walker Hernandez. She is a certified consultant, coach, and facilitator. She works with small nonprofit staff and boards to really build relationships that convert into, what do we like, more gifts and donations. And she's been in the space for 25 years on nonprofit management, fundraising, and leadership. And this is so impressive. I'm going to ask her about this when she comes on. Listen to this success metric. She increased operational revenue from $750,000 to $2.5 million and completed a $12 million comprehensive capital campaign in the third poorest county in the United States. I mean, can we just give her props before she even comes on, because that's amazing. And she has facilitated, which I just talked to her a little bit about, numerous workshops with hundreds of nonprofit professionals. She is certified in nonprofit management from the one and only Harvard Business School. And she's an active community leader and volunteer in Texas, where she is based. So get ready to drop your questions into the chat. What's up, Sabrina?
Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing so good. I'm so glad that you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. So this is like my wheelhouse. I like to give my opinions on things. So this is where I'm at.
And this is so like nonprofit management, engaging a board is something that I don't know a lot about. So I'm going to be like, tell me more.
Got it.
I'm leaning in hard to the conversation. So everyone, I love it. Kevin, thanks for coming. Luana, awesome. Thanks for being here. Yes, if you have questions, please make sure to drop them in the chat for Sabrina or myself. So Sabrina, I'm going to kind of like jump right in. And before we talk too much about board management, your background as the CEO, as the chief executive officer, was so impressive in those accomplishments.
Thank you. A lot of work.
So my first question is, what do you think were like the key components or things that you did there that really helped allow that impact to happen?
Well, I think that focusing on building relationships and also focusing on really the donor centric process helped me. I think my superpower is building relationships. And so once you have those relationships, then if you really focus and make it about the donor or the board member or whoever it is you're trying to engage, it made the process easier.
That's awesome. Was that something that was learned over time? Did you see like something pivot? Because how many years were you a CEO of that organization?
So I was with the organization for over 20 years, and I was a CEO for 15 of those 20 years. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I moved up in the organization. So I came in actually working in direct services. So I worked with first time juvenile offenders. And then I was operations for 5 years, where I trained under the CEO who had been there for 30 years. And then I became the CEO. And what I realized is I didn't even realize that building relationships was my superpower until a donor told me that it was. I just thought, I get along with people pretty well. And he's like, no, that's your superpower. And it's a really good thing that you should lean into. And and when he told me that, I was like, oh, okay. And so, as I went through my organization, and I strongly believe in professional development. So, you go to different conferences and you pick up different tidbits here and there that really enhance what you also bring to the table. And if you have a weakness, it helps you kind of build upon that weakness. So it was here's your core of what you do naturally. And now getting through professional development, how do we build upon that?
I love that. So that leads so well into one of my other questions regarding boards. Something that I've been learning a lot about. We were just talking beforehand that I worked for a nonprofit a while ago, and I wasn't as involved in the nitty gritty and like the politics and understanding the true role that comes with a board. But boards help create, most of the time, right, the annual budgets.
Yes, boards help create the annual budget. And it just, as I was sharing with you, I had a board when I first started out. I had a board of about 12 and I grew it to 21. I love boards. Let me just start there. A lot of people, that's not their happy place. It actually is my happy place. I love working with boards, and sometimes you have to be very intentional about getting your board involved. As I share with you, my board was like, "Oh, girl, you got this." They were one of those. If you would let them not be involved, it could easily happen, right? And so I had to be very intentional about getting them involved. And so using the committee structure was really pivotal for me. I had a finance committee, and my finance committee helped with the budget. In the real world, this is how I would do it. I would put the budget together as the CEO, and then I would give it to the committee, the finance committee, and then they would pick it apart in a sort of way, and we would talk about, what was membership last year. We would always look at a 3-year history. And if I wanted to jump more than 10% based on, the history, then we would sit down and have a discussion about it and how were we going to do that? How are we going to jump from 0 to 100%? How are we going to do that? What's the plan around that? And so that's how I would introduce new campaigns. We never in our organization had an individual giving campaign. So very few of our dollars came from individuals. And so that piece was introduced during the budget process. We're starting out with 0. Let's at least say the first year we can do 25,000. Then the next year we can do 100, forth and so on. And those discussions were had in the committee. And then the final budget would be taken to the board. And we would discuss any new opportunities that had to happen as a result of that.
Got it. Okay. That's super interesting. Do you think you mentioned something before talking about that you really believed in professional development? This is something that I've been talking a lot about on social media, if anybody knows me or follows me. So how did you encourage board approval to provide that funding for your team?
So there's a little trick to that I would use. Every grant that we wrote, every partnership that we developed that had some financial component to it, we would make sure that professional development was included in that. So, for example, if it was we received money from the Office of Justice program for mentoring. Well, we don't naturally know how to mentor, so we would, or you think you do, but you don't.
Yeah,
There's some
totally.
outcomes that come with that, and so we would write that into the grant application budget, training for XYZ. We would not specifically
Yeah.
name a conference. So that, if that's a little tip, don't name a conference, but just put training for mentoring, and that leaves it open to what conference or what opportunity that you want to take advantage of as an organization.
That is
So
so smart. And I would have to think, if I was a grantee, no one knows everything,
right,
obviously. And I learn new things about social media every single day. So I
right,
have to continue investing in digital marketing to
right.
be able to talk about it. If I was the funder and I saw in the grant that they wanted to use it to continue learning on the thing that they're asking to do from a program standpoint, that's also brilliant.
Yeah.
From just probably getting awarded the grant.
Right. It's always, it worked for us in our organization, and it wasn't just the program people that we wrote into the grant. It was also myself as a CEO, the operations, because we have to, we had to manage or oversee that process. And so we always justified it in, we want to know firsthand, so then that we can support our staff in implementation process. So every grant, like I said, every partnership, whether that was anywhere where we got financial support from, whether it was municipality, county, foundation, we wrote in professional development. And it wasn't always professional development as it was program related. Sometimes it was professional development around increasing our fundraising capacity. Things of that nature that we really needed. So those are kind of the opportunities we spent about. I mean, it's not a high percent, moving the budget to 2.5 million. We spent about $32,000 a year on professional development.
Yeah.
So,
I wish I had it up here to share on LinkedIn. I just did a poll asking people, actually, I think I have it on my phone to give the correct stats. I asked in their organizations. Well, one, I asked, do you think post-college professional development is important for you and your organization to succeed? 89% said yes. I don't know who these people are that said no, but it was like 3. And then, so knowing that 89% feel that it's important. Oh, here it is. I asked then, what is your organization's professional development budget in the nonprofit space? The first category, Sabrina, are you ready for this? $0. I'm totally on my own, was 49%. For everybody listening, I'm so curious. Drop in the comments where you guys are at or what your thought is on professional development. 30% put that they get $1,000 to $2,500 annually.
Not enough.
7% had 5 to 10. And 14% had 10K annually.
Yeah. That is unfortunate, because professional development for me, and the way I explained it to my board too, is it's about limiting liability. Because if you are not trained and if something happens in your organization, then you open yourself up for more liability. If you've ever had to, thank God, I personally have never had to sit on a case, but I've had others who've had, and they ask you about your professional development. They ask you about how many hours do you have of training. And so I always saw it as a liability issue, and thank God my board saw it that way as well. So I truly believe in order for organization to get better, you have to invest in the people that
let's go, Mike.
Mike, you got to invest. You got to be willing to invest in your people. That is exactly it. To get better, you got to invest, because the industry, it's a nonprofit industry. The industry is continually changing.
Yeah.
It really is. With the advent of technology, if you're not out there finding out about apps like Pledge or sites like Pledge and things that you can do,
Totally.
and the best thing about going to a conference or going to workshops is not the content is great. I love the content because I always learn something, but it's networking with people that
People.
are in the trenches with you, that are experiencing some of the same things that
100%.
you are experiencing, or they've tackled that hurdle. You know what?
Yeah.
I would get my best fundraising ideas from
So
conferences.
you
I
don't
would
make
get
the
my
mistakes that somebody else
that
made.
somebody else may, right? Or, I'm having this issue with my board. How did you handle it? Or again, thinking that you're in a silo. Oh, woe is me. It's just me. When you find out, no, it's everybody, Or my favorite was, someone who says, I have a small budget, and you find out their budget is like $10 million, and you're looking at them like, shut up, you do not have a small budget. Like, let me tell you what a small budget is. But you realize they have the same problems. They're having the same complaints that you
You know
have.
what it is? So, and this just speaks to going off on such a tangent on this,
Mhm.
everyone. Sorry. But Mallory Erickson and I, we were talking about this beforehand. She's a fundraising consultant. She's awesome. We met virtually, and we're small businesses, but we were like, we need to get together. Like, we're both vaccinated. We both got COVID tested. We met up. She flew from California. I flew from Atlanta last week, and we met up in Salt Lake City. And we invested the funds to do that, to sit with each other, to learn.
Yep.
Like, it's totally relational. But then you're learning, like, oh my gosh, you were doing this. Oh my gosh, let's talk about the sector as a whole. And that was like unbelievably impactful.
Yes.
So I digress with this.
Sorry, I apologize, but I do truly
No.
believe in professional development. I think that it made a difference in my career, and it can make a difference in an organization. So getting off the soapbox, I apologize.
Cindy, I wish I had that small budget. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Cindy. Agreed. So, question on recruitment, because I think this is really important. Because it goes into the approval of finances, like recruiting the right engaging board. And I guess the key word there is actually right board. What are your tips on that?
So my tips on recruiting the right board members is knowing what you're missing from your board, first of all. And so being very conscious about where you want to go and having a concrete document. And I use the matrix, and people can use different things, but literally mapping out who is on your board, what they represent as far as industry, what they represent as far as, are they strategic in nature, are they visionary, are they a consensus builder, representing other demographics like race, age, and more importantly for me is, do they have community connections? Are they people of affluence? Or are they people of influence? Do they have fundraising experience? Are they connected to those who, if they are not people of affluence, are they connected to people of affluence? And just really mapping it out and seeing where my gaps are, and then recruiting towards my gaps. Right. And so, and having a process in place as far as recruitment. So knowing the gaps, right? That's one. I have these gaps, and then sharing those gaps with the board. Of course, we did the gaps together, but sharing it with the board and making them very aware. Hey, we have this many vacancies or this vacancy, but this is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And do you know anyone that fits that criteria? And then not nominating, but connecting that individual to the organization, and going through an interview process, or several individuals, because the conversation needs to be had that we have a vacancy on our board, and we are looking at several options to fill that vacancy. Would you consider your name being added to that list? That's very different from, hey, I serve on this board and we have this vacancy. Come serve with me.
It's way more intentional.
Right. And so having that intentionality behind it, and having, that in process, because, we've been burnt as a board. I've been burnt. Let me tell you how we used to do it. This is a true life story. So I'm a Rotarian, and we had this fabulous Rotarian that was really dedicated to Rotary and was awesome board member at Rotary. And we thought, she's so awesome over here. Let's steal her and put her on our board. And we did, without an interview process, we suspended our process. We thought, we have us something here, right? And it was a complete disaster. No affinity towards our mission at all. I was a youth serving organization. Should have known that a person who was in their late seasoned years with no kids might not like kids. And that was a conscious choice on their part. And to put them in a youth serving organization, they didn't like it. It didn't work out. So don't suspend your process for anyone, even when you're thinking, oh my God, we're getting away with this. Like, we're getting this awesome person. Yeah. If there's no affinity towards the mission, that's what the process is there for, to determine, before you make those mistakes. So, again,
there's also something too that you said there that was interesting, is to recruit all different types of people with backgrounds and experiences, I think is huge. I was talking to an organization recently that serves high school, college age youth, and they were trying to tap into that age. And I was like, well, do you have someone that age on your board?
Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, no, I didn't think about that.
So it's like, you should bring in all levels of generations, because that's going to affect how you decide to fundraise, the events that you do, literally everything.
Right.
Depending on who you're trying to attract to be either who you support, and then who you're trying to bring in as donors too.
Yes. And I think it's critical. A little bit about me and where I live. So I live along the Texas-Mexico border, and I'm 20 miles from Mexico, and the population is like 97% Hispanic. And so when I'm looking at board diversity, and things like that, it really is a conscious effort when 97% of your population is Hispanic when it comes to racial diversity. Yeah. And so we had to look at it a little bit differently. We had to look at it as far as industry diversity. We had to look at it as far as age diversity. What type of personality and characteristics that they bring to the table. And when you look at it like that, when you change your perspective of what diversity is, I think it allows you to look at the breadth of what we should be talking about when we're talking about diversity. Because even in Texas, girl, I did not have anybody from the ranching industry on my board. I said, how did we miss that? But it took us to stop and pause and say, what are we missing? We were missing someone from the oil industry, which you would think would be very obvious in Texas, and the ranching industry. But we really literally had to stop and map it out and say, what are we missing?
It's a very conscious effort.
Yeah, very, very. And then we went to the Kresge Foundation for money, and they looked at our board diversity as well. And I don't know how this happened, but at one point we were a board of a lot of women, and then all of a sudden we became a board of just 3 women and a lot of men. So you have to consciously all the time look and tweak. And it was the Kresge Foundation who pointed it out to us. It was the Kresge Foundation.
Because I think sometimes, I was in a situation a couple years ago with this, where you just get moving. And it's whoever raises their hand to volunteer. We're like, sure, yeah, come in. Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah, come in. And you're not even looking around the room. Yeah. You're just in the work. Until an outside organization is like, hey, first time I've met y'all.
Yeah. Right? It's like, it's a lot of men here.
Everyone kind of looks the same, a little familiar.
Yeah.
But because you know them, because you're good
people. Yeah. That's all you're thinking. We're rocking and rolling here.
I love that. Yeah. So on the flip side, getting a little bit controversial, if there are nonprofits that are listening that might be having issues with their current board, what do you recommend to try and troubleshoot that and get to a resolve?
So it depends on what kind of issues. I always start with my bylaws. And hopefully in your bylaws, you have a way to remove board members if it's truly about something that can't be resolved, like they're not coming to meetings. Most bylaws say if you miss 3 consecutive meetings, then your board have the option to vote you out, or things of that nature, things that are addressed in your bylaws. And then the next level is you have to determine, really, is it a difficult personality that you're working with, or is it a toxic board member?
Mm.
You cannot like someone that does not really give you grounds to get rid of they just difficult personality, and that's up to your board chair to kind of manage, and hopefully your board chair is strong enough to manage that. If it's a toxic personality, I always say the CEO and the board chair has to be on the same page, and you just have to manage that toxic board member out the door. And usually how you manage them out the door is you make sure that you guys are on the same page. You make sure that you and your executive committee or your nomination committee is on the same page, and you introduce something that they're not going to like 100% of board members have to give, or or whatever it is that they're on the opposite end of the issue are. You put that in place, and they'll probably remove themselves, is the way I say how to exit a toxic board member.
Exit
and then
stage left.
Exit stage left. Or then there's also some that they're not toxic, but they're founding board members, and they've been there forever, and this is the way we've always done things, and this is the way we will continue to do things, and you rely on them because of finance. Sometimes you're in that situation. In that particular incident, I always say, make it a celebration, if you can, of their departure. Throw a big party, make them feel great, create an honorary board where they can, still come to meetings, but they don't have a vote, but they still feel included.
Love that.
And just, they can't not say that the organization didn't celebrate their contributions. You make it as big as you possibly can.
I like that idea. Even Becky is singing your praises.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I think that's a great idea for anyone who's leaving a board.
Yes.
Whether or not what a great idea, outside of if there's a problem or if they're wonderful, or both, that they get celebrated on their way out, or maybe as a group if a couple of people are exiting. That's such a fun idea. And then you always have this like warm and fuzzy spot for the organization. I wonder, when it comes to recruitment, in preventing some of maybe what could be problems. So I know in the female entrepreneurship space, every mastermind or group I join is really big into understanding, and they ask for your Enneagram number or your human design. Are those things, I don't know if those have been brought into an application, if you're going to be a board member, but what do you think about that?
I don't think that's a bad idea. I have not done it. I will be very honest. But it's actually not a bad idea. I like to do strength finders just to kind of see where people are. Are they activators? Are they planners? Are they this? And I use that with my leadership team, not necessarily with board members. That would be interesting. I try to use, just in managing my board and trying to get the best out of them, the languages of love. Are they physical touch? Are they volunteer? I use that in the background of working with my board to know how to engage them. Do they like the hands-on stuff? I had a board member, he loved being at all the events and interacting with the kids. So I made sure that he knew about I made sure everybody knew about everything. But with him, I would make an extra effort to let him know.
It could be a really neat board exercise activity, at the beginning, when everybody's kicking off the year or something.
It would be. I think that will get things, a conversation started. It could be like the generative question at the end of your board meeting to get that conversation started. I think that would be excellent, actually, because we used to, tend to focus so much on the fundraising, and use that time for that. But this might help you. Now my mind is going. This might help you determine what is the best fit for role for fundraising for that particular board member, because I think that each board member should have a role. And for me, fundraising is not about making the ask, because to me, that's only 5% of fundraising. And so for me, fundraising is 20% is identifying and qualifying the donor. And then 60% is cultivation. 5% is making the ask. And then 15% is the thank you piece. So if you did something like that, my mind is working as we're speaking, you could really say who's going to be the best, who would serve better as a door opener
Yeah.
on our board to
Sabrina,
introduce
I
us to
think you might
people.
have a new workshop in the
I
works.
know. I'm thinking I might. I'm like, oh, this could work.
This is literally because everyone loves, I mean, in the comments, let me know. Everyone loves to learn about themselves. Let's be real, right?
I like to know.
Everyone likes to know about themselves. You're more knowledgeable. And it could honestly, whatever the answers are, it leads into their professional work too. And then I bet you they could do the same thing with their team.
I think this would be a good idea, even as a part of a board retreat, or like you said at the beginning of the year, because you need all those different components to engage your
Yeah.
board in fundraising. And wouldn't it,
Totally.
I always say, lean into what their strengths are to get over the fact, like if people won't ask for money, who cares? It's only 5%. Of fundraising. But if they're going to be a great cultivator or a great thanker or a great door opener, that's where you need to lean into. And those types of tests will help you determine
so much more comfortable in that role.
In that role, and they will excel in that role, and that will help you raise more money and engage them because they're in their comfort.
Oh my God, please teach on this.
I will. This is good stuff. I serve on a board too, and I think I might pilot it with my board, and then we go from there.
I know, me too. We were just talking about, Ray just mentioned he likes the idea of an honorary board, which is another great idea when somebody's moving on, so they can still feel like a part of it. I thought that was great. Was that my last question for you? Oh, no, I have one more. Well, you just kind of went into it, which is board fundraising.
Okay.
I'm just like, I just could talk to you for days about new ideas and like how we evolve this space. Because I think so many different areas within the nonprofit sector are evolving. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is a generational change and shift. But so board fundraising, what have you seen work and not work?
Well, I'll start off, since we already went down the conversation. What I'll start off is with this. Don't disregard people because of the fear of the 5. And the fear of the 5 is only 5% of fundraising is making the ask. Out of a board of 21, I think I had like maybe 2 or 3 fearless women who are not afraid to ask for money. For me as the CEO or the ED, I always felt like, okay, at the end of the day, I get paid to do a job. Granted, I'm passionate about the mission. I'm passionate about everything, but still at the end of the day, I get paid to do a job. So I will make the ask. If it makes others feel uncomfortable, that is what I will do. However, I'm not going to make an ask on my own. So I would always bring a board member with me, because that board member lends credibility to the process of making the ask. They lend credibility because they are a volunteer. They are not getting paid to be there. They honestly believe in the mission, and they lend credibility to that process. And they are there to say, I am passionate about the organization. I too give to this organization. And ultimately the ask will you consider a gift of $5,000 to my organization? Comes from me. That's the one sentence. So they're there to be, to lend that credibility. So don't disregard people because of the fear of the 5. And I hear a lot of,
love that.
A lot of people do that. They think, well, my board members don't help because they don't ask for money, or they won't do this or that. There are so many ways that a board member can contribute to the fundraising process outside of that 5%. So again, 20% is opening the door, identifying and qualifying donors. I had a board member who said, I will never ask for money. And And I was okay with that because I understood this fundraising process. So I asked, what would you be willing to do? And she said, I'll introduce you to whoever you want me to introduce you to. So she was my door opener. And because she was my door opener and that was where she was at, and that's
a
where,
crucial role.
yeah, that's a crucial role. She raised over $1 million with never asking for money. She introduced me to the bank owner, not the bank president, but the bank owner. Who had a private
because
plane.
They knew her.
Yes.
And it comes down to trust. They trusted her. So therefore, any introduction is already going to be wonderful.
Exactly. So she lended her trust to me, and it was up to me and our organization to ensure that we kept that trust. And as a result of that relationship and that introduction, of course, we had to steward it and cultivate it and all that. But that bank owner flew us to the Maybe Foundation at Oklahoma, and we walked away with a $250,000 check. Because when they told me, this is what happened. So we were in the middle of a capital campaign, and we applied to the Maybe Foundation, and we didn't get it. And let me tell you, all my CEOs out there, I cried. I did. I didn't know how we were going to do it. I was like, oh my God, we need this gift, because in a capital campaign, you got to have a certain foundation who would then open up the door for another foundation. And they like to come in at different times in the process. And so I said, oh God, it's over. It's just over. And so they said, why don't we fly up there, to talk to him? And I said, okay. And I thought, let me start making flight arrangements and doing, because that's the circles I roll in.
Yeah.
We go commercial, we go American, United. That's what we do. And he kind of looked at me. He says, no, I have a plane. And I was like, oh, okay. So the capital campaign chair, myself, and the bank president flew up to Oklahoma, and we did a presentation, and we walked out with a $250,000 check. And then, that bank then appointed the bank president as the co-chair for the capital campaign. And they also appoint 2 board members to my board who have to raise $5,000 each. So if you start adding up everything that she was able to provide to the organization without asking for a dime, it's over millions of dollars. And then, so that's why I say lean into their strengths. And then, you have those that, like me, I love relationships. 60% of fundraising is building relationships, is cultivating, is getting people to come and do tours of your organization, is taking them out to lunch or breakfast or dinner, it's dropping by their office and saying, hey, I know you collect A, B, and C. I saw A, B, and C at the store. Here you go. It's all of that piece, which I love. And you have other board members who love that part. And that's 60%. And then you have that 5%, which is an ask, which, like I said, is the fear of the 5 that most people are afraid of. We talked about that. And then you have that 15% that's recognition and thank you. We are horrible as nonprofit sectors in saying thank you. And I have not quite put my hand on why we are horrible. I think sometimes it's because you like, oh, we got the gift. Now we just need to leave them alone. Let them rest, And we were afraid to talk to them. Put it away. We don't want to take it out and play with it. I don't know what it is, but we're very hard. We're very bad at doing that stewardship and cultivation. So if you have board members who can pick up the phone and call and engage them and say thank you.
Give. I'm just thinking about the last time I've given, and I have a question on here that I want to get answered to from Cindy. When you give, you feel good about giving, right? There's an endorphin rush that happens with that. And so if it's fresh in my mind that I gave, it's smarter for you to maybe come to me sooner about a second gift with a very specific, relevant ask, because you're top of mind to me.
Yes.
And I just had that really good feeling about supporting you. So that's super interesting you said that. Cindy asked, she came on late. Cindy, all good. Our board only does a board give of $1,000 per year. If some of them can afford more, what do you think about a sliding scale?
So I, believe it or not, our board minimum was $500. That's at minimum. That's what you had to get, which is lower than yours. So what we eventually changed to, and there's some pros and cons to this, because with this new board that I'm serving on, we said give at the capacity that you feel comfortable with, because we didn't want someone who could give $1,000 to give 500 and so forth and so on. However, what I have learned is give an amount. This is from my experience only. I say specify an amount, because what will happen and what I've seen happen is you're forcing people to make a decision, and sometimes people don't make decisions. So, and that's happened to me on
That
this
goes
new
back
board.
to that strengths test.
Yes. It goes back to that strength test. And that happened on this new board. I was like, okay, let me embrace this idea of not setting a minimum and just say give at your, your significant ability. Well, out of the 5 board members, some gave different amounts, but there was one person, 1 or 2 people who didn't give at all. And it wasn't because they didn't want to give. I reached out to them and they was like, tell me an amount to give. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're one of those.
Yeah.
So it forces you. I don't think the sliding scale would necessarily work. People just want to be told what to do.
Yeah. I heard recently, actually, the organization I used to work for in Sarasota, Florida, their board rises to the occasion when there's specific needs. So it's like, hey, as a board, we are going to take care of fulfilling this thing that we need. And it's $10,000 or $20,000, whatever it is. And we are in agreement that we are going to come together and we are going to give to that.
Yes.
By whatever means necessary.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool way of also drawing back and focusing back on the impact of the organization. Yeah. And it gives you some like I helped as a team to make this thing happen. And that's really powerful.
Yeah, that is powerful, because then it's like funding a need.
Yeah.
And they know exactly what that need is, as opposed to, although, funding operations, we do need that, but it makes them have an impact of funding the need.
Yeah. I love that. Sabrina, I could talk to you all day, and we need to have another conversation on things, but how can people connect with you? How can they find you? How can they learn more from your wonderful wisdom and check out this new workshop you're going to do on strengths testing and finding with your board?
Well, I'm going to give one call to action, because that's the way they said, don't give too much because people get lost. So if you go to my website, www.supportingworldhope.com, you will find my email, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, everything in one location. So again, www.supportingworldhope.com.
I'm putting it in the chat right now.
Perfect.
So everyone can go there, and there you go. It's right there, everybody.
Cool.
Show her some love. Give her some emojis, claps. If you love this interview, thumbs up, hearts, whatever you got. I love having guests on. And Sabrina, you are a gem in the space and so full of knowledge. So thank you so much for joining me today. And in the midst of everything, especially going on in the world. It's nice to see a friendly face and have some laughter and good conversation. So
it really is.
I appreciate you. Awesome. Thanks for being here. I'll see you soon.
Yes, ma'am.
She is such a breath of fresh air. Thank you, Jay. I see sharing with a few colleagues in the field now. Great conversation all the way around. This was so wonderful. This is why I love having these conversations. Also, I am booking guests, I can't believe it, into December. So if you know someone, and I'll book into 2022, I do these twice a month. And if they're becoming more popular, maybe I'll do it a little bit more. But if you know someone that you think would be an amazing guest, please just drop me a note and reach out, and I would love to chat with them. One other thing I wanted to note, I have a free masterclass coming up on how to attract recurring new donors and raise more funds with social media ads on August 25th. So next week at 1 p.m. Really interesting thing about this, because Sabrina hinted at it, is the 15%, I think she said, was the thank you part of fundraising. And I teach this 4-part series, this 4-part ad series. And your 4th ad is retargeting. This is just like a hint out of the class, is retargeting people who have donated to you and saying thank you. So imagine well, I don't know if everyone's on Facebook or Instagram, but let's just say you are. And you go to Airbnb or some website, and then you get retargeted on Facebook and Instagram to buy that thing. What if I went to your nonprofit, I donated, I open up Instagram or Facebook, and immediately I see, or not maybe immediately, but I scroll through and I then see an ad from your executive director or a key stakeholder. It's like, hey, thank you so much for your gift. I made such an impact. I'd be like blown away. And I'd be like, I want to share this with my friends and family. This is an amazing organization. Check them out. Super simple. Again, doesn't take a lot of funds and super easy to get together. So that's what I'll be sharing on the 25th. I will put the link in the comments for you to join me, but it's positiveequation.com/masterclass. And with that, thank you to Pledge for supporting this amazing conversation, and I will see you all next time. Have a good day.